Well, first off, I can tell you who is not going to win the speech contest tonight. I am really, really nervous, and I'm going to read here for a minute. I'd like to thank Shane Ryan and his father, the late Dr. Tony Ryan, for this extraordinary opportunity. As a first-time author with a small publisher, it's just a huge honor to be considered for this prestigious award. On a personal level, it's extremely gratifying to have my hard work recognized as literary fiction and to be here on the same stage with two incredible authors such as Andrew and Milton. When Mark Simon called me to confirm that I would be attending tonight's ceremony, I was so excited I told him I would walk here if I had to. Fortunately, I took an airplane. I come from Seattle, so it was would have been a rather long walk. I started my novel, Her Last Race, years ago, like a long time ago, determined to craft a horse racing story that was interesting, well-written, and had something to say. This took significantly longer than expected. My primary inspiration for writing Her Last Race was the horses. Racing is one of the few sports in the world in which two different species work together toward a common goal. Horses are like people, of course, and some of them would rather just stand around and get fat. But most want to win and are really, really proud when they do. Racing is a complex sport, so I set out to create a cast of diverse and well-rounded characters, people and horses who weren't perfect, but who readers would root for. Knowing that the main character would be a woman jockey, I worried that the story would come off sounding whiny if all her detractors were men. So I had to devise a storyline that would avoid that trap. When I went to the racetrack and started galloping and later riding, I just graduated from the University of Washington, and I knew it was a tough sport, brutally tough for all the participants, both equine and human, but in particular for women. For some reason, I naively expected that other women in the sport, the trainers and owners, would be more supportive of women jockeys than they were back then. In retrospect, I understand their position that if a woman trainer got a reputation for riding women jockeys, all her horses were liable to go bye-bye into someone else's barn. That's how disfavored women jockeys were in the beginning. So when I started creating the story in my head, I asked myself, what would be the worst case scenario? And that's how I came up with the mother-daughter theme that I wove into a racetrack story. I wanted to show that the average racetracker is just a hardworking individual with an atypical job who's always dreaming of owning or training the big horse. And I wanted to show that racing is an extremely competitive sport whose participants are sometimes subjected to the whims of bad luck, and when that happens, it's just unavoidable, but sad but unavoidable. And I wanted the story to be realistic. To that end, I was able to take many of my own experiences and change them just a little. For example, and here's where I ran out of paper, so I'm going to bring it from here. The main character is a female jockey, and in one chapter, she eats too much at Christmas time, and her pants come unsnapped, leaving the gate of a race. Well, what happened to me was I was riding at Hollywood Park, and it was my first route race, and the riders had told me ahead of time, you know, stay high at the beginning because you're going to get tired. It was a mile and 16th. It's a long ways, and so I was fine with that. Well, the one horse fell at the break, and I think J.J. Steiner was riding him, and he flew into the path of my horse. My horse ducked out really sharply, and I went that way. But I managed not to fall off, but my pants went pop, 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 pop. So I'm going, I start to stand up like I'm supposed to at the beginning of the race, to stand higher, and my pants start slipping down. I don't know if you've ever seen jockey pants. They're nylon and very thin and lightweight. And so I thought, well, I'll just have to stay lower the whole way, and I'll just have to do it. And so I'm going down the backside. I've got Chris McCarron on my outside and Eddie D on the inside, and they're looking at me like, she did not listen to us. So I get into the turn, and my horse was not a rod horse, so he's getting tired. My legs are just burning, and so I have to start standing up. And when I do, my pants start filling full of air and ballooning. And I'm like a parachute. I'm going to blow off the back of the horse. And then I think, either that or I'm going to get tangled up in my pants, and I'm going to get my picture in the National Enquirer. So what I did was I finally grabbed my pants with my whip hand, and then I just rode in that way. And then after the race, of course, my horse is notoriously difficult to pull up after a race. And the guinea stand was packed, so I kind of went past the guinea stand, holding my pants up. And then after I got past there, I started trying to pull them up, and of course my pants fell down to my knees, and then next thing I know, I have the most handsome outrider, and he's pulled me up, and he's trying not to laugh at me. He's trying to keep a straight face. And I said, "Could you hold my horse so I could button my pants?" And have you ever tried to stand up with the irons like that long and try to button snap pants when the horse is wiggling all over the place? Of course I couldn't do it. So he took me back to the unsaddling area. I couldn't get the horse in the saddle because my pants were falling down. I finally went back into the room, and it was the last race. It's probably the first time in history that every jock in that room was watching the last race replay.